The stars looked cold and empty through the broken viewing port of the ship called Gentle Current. Captain Thelvas pressed his thin, pale hand against the crystal wall and felt the vibrations of his dying vessel. Air leaked out through dozens of cracks in the hull. The ship's lights flickered and dimmed as power systems failed one by one. Thelvas belonged to a race called the Valerians. They were tall and graceful, with silver skin that glowed softly in the dark. Their bones were light and hollow, perfect for their homeworld's weak gravity. They had built their ships from living crystal that could heal itself and grow stronger over time. But now those crystals were dying, and nothing could save them. "Captain," whispered his communications officer, her voice weak with fear. "The emergency beacon is ready. Should I send the message?" Thelvas nodded slowly. He knew this would be their last act. The message would go out on every frequency they knew, hoping someone, somewhere, might hear their cry for help. Even if it was too late for them, maybe other worlds could be warned. "Send it," he said. The message burst out from their ship like a dying star's last light. It carried the story of terror that had consumed their people. The Devourers had returned from the dark spaces between galaxies. They were machines that had once been alive, but had chosen to become something else, something hungry. They moved from world to world, eating everything living, growing stronger with each planet they consumed. The Valerians had tried to fight, but their weapons were made for peace, not war. Their ships carried tools for healing and building, not destroying. When the Devourers came, they swept through Valerian space like a plague of metal death. The signal traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying its message of doom to anyone who might listen. Most races in this part of the galaxy had already fallen silent. Their worlds were dark now, stripped clean of all life. But the signal kept traveling. Far away on a small monitoring station orbiting a planet called Kepler 442b, a young woman named Hannah sat at her communications desk. She worked the night shift, listening to the endless static of empty space. Most nights, nothing happened. She would drink coffee and read reports and count the hours until her shift ended. Tonight was different. Her equipment started beeping with an urgent tone. Hannah sat up straight and checked her screens. Something was broadcasting on multiple frequencies at once. The signal was weak but clear, coming from deep space beyond any known human settlements. "Computer, begin translation protocol," Hannah said. The computers worked for several minutes, trying to make sense of the alien language. Hannah had never seen anything like it. The patterns were completely different from any human language. Her heart began to beat faster. This was it. This was first contact with an alien species. When the translation finally appeared on her screen, Hannah's excitement turned to horror. The message spoke of death and destruction on a scale she could barely imagine. Entire star systems had gone dark. Billions of innocent beings had been consumed by something called the Devourers. The Valerians were dying, and they were begging anyone who could hear their message to run, to hide, to prepare for the coming darkness. Hannah's hands shook as she reached for the emergency communication link to Terra Command. This was far beyond her authority to handle. She needed to contact Admiral Doyun immediately. "Terra Command, this is Monitoring Station 7, she said, her voice tight with urgency. "I need to speak with Admiral Doyun right now. We have received an alien distress signal." The response came quickly. "Stand by, Station 7, patching you through to the Admiral's office." Admiral Doyun was a serious man who had spent his whole life preparing for threats to humanity. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion and the Asteroid Wars. He had seen the worst that humans could do to each other. But when Hana played the translated message for him, he realized that all of humanity's conflicts had been small and petty compared to what was coming. "Send me everything," Do-Yoon ordered. "The raw signal, the translation, all of it. And Hana?" "Yes, sir." "Good work. You may have just saved the human race." Over the next few hours, the best scientists and linguists on Earth worked to verify the translation. They confirmed that the signal was genuine. Somewhere out there, an alien species was fighting for its life against an enemy that consumed entire worlds. Dr. Kyung, the head of xenobiology research, studied every detail of the message. She learned that the Valerians were peaceful beings who had never known war. Their technology was based on growing things rather than building them. They lived in harmony with their environment and had never needed to develop weapons of mass destruction. "Admiral," Dr. Kyung reported, "based on their biological data, these Valerians would see us as monsters. Their gravity is 1/3 of Earth's. Their atmosphere is thin. They have no large predators on their world. To them, we would appear to be incredibly strong and dangerous." Admiral Do-Yoon thought about this. Humans had evolved on a world full of dangers. High gravity had made them strong. Predators had made them quick and clever. Diseases had made their immune systems powerful. Natural disasters had taught them to work together and fight against impossible odds. "Doctor," he said, "maybe being monsters is exactly what this situation needs." The Admiral called for an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Representatives from every major nation and colony would need to hear about this threat. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for war against each other. Now they would need to unite against something far worse. As Hana finished her shift and prepared to go home, she looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, aliens were dying. They had sent their last message into the darkness, hoping someone would hear their cry for help. They had no way of knowing that their signal had reached a world of predators who had learned to protect instead of prey. They could not imagine that their desperate call for help would awaken humanity's war machine. The message had traveled across the galaxy carrying news of death and destruction. But it would return with something the Devourers had never faced before. It would return with humanity. Admiral Do-Hyun walked to his office window and stared out at the shipyards of Mars. Soon those yards would be busy preparing the largest military fleet in human history. They would build ships designed for one purpose: to carry Earth's children to war among the stars. The aliens had called for help. Humanity would answer. The emergency meeting room in Terra Command buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from every major human settlement had gathered either in person or through holographic projection. The walls displayed star maps showing the known galaxy, with a large red zone marking where the alien distress signal had originated. Admiral Do-Hyun stood at the head of the table, his face grim as he waited for everyone to arrive. General Minji sat to his right, her military uniform crisp and her expression hard as steel. She had commanded ground forces in 3 major conflicts and believed that strength was the only language the universe understood. Ambassador Ji-won took her seat across from the general. She represented the diplomatic corps and had spent years trying to prevent wars rather than fight them. Her elegant suit and calm demeanor stood in sharp contrast to the military officers surrounding her. Dr. Kyung entered last, carrying a tablet full of data about the alien species. She had barely slept since receiving the distress signal, working around the clock to understand everything she could about the Valerians and their mysterious enemy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Do-hyun began, "3 days ago, we received humanity's first confirmed contact with an intelligent alien species. Unfortunately, they are dying, and something called the Devourers is killing them." The room fell silent as he played the translated message. Even though most of the people present had already heard it, the alien's desperate words still sent chills through the room. When the message ended, several representatives began talking at once. "We need to mobilize the fleet immediately," General Minji declared, slamming her hand on the table. "If these Devourers are as dangerous as the aliens claim, they will eventually reach human space. We need to stop them before they get stronger." Ambassador Ji-won shook her head. "General, we don't know anything about this situation. We should try to establish peaceful contact first. Send a diplomatic mission to learn more about what we're dealing with." "Peaceful contact with what?" General Minji shot back. "The aliens are being exterminated. There might not be anyone left to talk to by the time a diplomatic mission arrives." The debate grew heated quickly. The colonial representatives worried about leaving their settlements undefended. The Earth Council wanted more information before committing to any action. The Mars Authority demanded immediate military response. Admiral Do-hyun raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Kyung, tell us what you've learned about these aliens." Dr. Kyung activated her tablet, and detailed biological scans appeared on the room's main screen. "The Valerians evolved on a world called Veltar Prime. Gravity there is roughly 1/3 of Earth normal. The atmosphere is thin, similar to our high mountains. Most importantly, they appear to have evolved without significant predator pressure." She highlighted various parts of the alien anatomy. "Look at their bone structure. It's hollow, like a bird's, designed for low gravity. Their muscle density is very low compared to humans. Their nervous system is optimized for complex thought, rather than quick reflexes." "What does this mean for us?" asked the representative from Europa Station. "It means," Dr. Kyung continued, "that to them, we would appear to be incredibly dangerous. Our bone density is roughly 5 times theirs. Our muscle mass would seem enormous. Our reflexes are evolved for dodging predators and catching prey. From their perspective, humans would be terrifying monsters." General Minji leaned forward. "Terrifying monsters might be exactly what we need to be." Ambassador Ji-won looked uncomfortable. "We can't base our first contact with an alien species on intimidation and violence." "Ma'am," said a new voice from the back of the room. Captain Tae-hyuk had been quietly listening to the debate. He commanded the UES Indomitable, one of humanity's most advanced warships. "With respect, the Valerians didn't contact us for diplomacy. They sent a warning. They're telling us that something is coming that will destroy us all." The captain moved to the front of the room. "I've studied the tactical data from their message. The Devourers move from system to system, consuming everything. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They just eat entire worlds and move. On to the next one." He pointed to the star map. "Based on their current pattern, they'll reach the outer human colonies in approximately 18 months. We can either meet them there with everything we have, or we can wait for them to come to us after they've grown stronger." The room erupted in arguments again. Some wanted to evacuate the outer colonies and defend Earth. Others demanded an immediate attack. A few still insisted on trying diplomatic solutions. Admiral Do-hyun watched the chaos for several minutes before speaking again. "The decision has already been made," he said quietly. His voice carried enough authority to silence the room. Instantly. I've spoken with the President and the Joint Chiefs. We're mobilizing the Outer Rim Defense Fleet. Every available ship, every trained crew, every Marine and pilot we can spare. Captain Taehyuk will lead the advanced scout group. General Minji will command ground operations. Ambassador Jiwon will handle any diplomatic contacts we encounter. The ambassador stood up. Admiral, I must protest. We're talking about taking humanity to war based on a single alien message. What if this is some kind of trap? What if the Valerians are lying to us? Dr. Kyung spoke up. Ambassador, I've analyzed their biological and technological data. The Valerians couldn't lie about something like this even if they wanted to. Their entire civilization is built around cooperation and truth-sharing. Deception would be literally impossible for them. Besides, added Captain Taehyuk, if they wanted to harm us, they would have sent coordinates to our worlds, not a general warning about a galactic threat. General Minji nodded approvingly. How long do we have to prepare the fleet? 2 weeks, Admiral Do-yun replied. The shipyards on Mars are already working around the clock. We're pulling ships from every command. This will be the largest military operation in human history. The representative from Luna Colony raised her hand. What about our defenses here? If we send the entire fleet away, what protects Earth? Earth will have to protect itself, the Admiral said grimly. But if the Devourers reach human space, having a few ships here won't matter anyway. Our only chance is to stop them before they get stronger. As the meeting broke up, small groups continued arguing about the decision. Some thought it was too risky. Others thought they weren't doing enough. But the orders had been given, and humanity would respond to the alien distress call. Dr. Kyung approached Admiral Do-yun as the room emptied. Sir, there's something else you should know about the Valerians. What is it, Doctor? They've never seen anything like humans before. Our evolutionary history, our physical capabilities, our aggressive instincts, to them, we're going to seem like something out of their worst nightmares. But we might be their only hope. Admiral Do-hyun nodded slowly. Then we'll be their nightmares. Turn protector. Sometimes that's what the universe needs. Outside the meeting room, Captain Taehyuk was already making plans for the fleet's departure. General Minji was reviewing troop deployment schedules. Ambassador Jiwon was preparing first contact protocols. In 2 weeks, humanity would take its first steps into galactic politics. They would do it as warriors answering a cry for help from strangers they had never met. The universe was about to learn what happened when Earth's children went to war for someone else. The orbital shipyards around Mars had never seen activity like this. What normally took months to accomplish was happening in days. Ships that had been in routine maintenance were hastily repaired and restocked. New vessels still under construction were rushed to completion. The entire industrial might of human civilization was focused on one goal: preparing for war among the stars. Commander Sunmi stood on the bridge of the heavy assault carrier Terra's Fury, watching through the viewport, as cargo haulers loaded the last of their supplies. Her ship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, designed to carry a full Marine division and their equipment into battle. The hangar bays buzzed with activity as fighters and assault shuttles were secured for the long journey ahead. Commander, her communications officer called out, Admiral Do-hyun is requesting a status report. Tell the Admiral we'll be ready for departure in 6 hours, Sunmi replied. She had pushed her crew harder than ever before, but they understood the stakes. Somewhere out there, an entire alien species was dying, and humanity might be their only hope. In the engineering sections deep within the ship, Chief Engineer Won-ho supervised the final calibration of their quantum drive systems. These experimental engines could fold space itself, allowing ships to travel vast distances in a fraction of the time required by conventional faster-than-light drives. The technology was still new and potentially dangerous, but it would give the human fleet a crucial advantage in speed and surprise. "Chief," one of his technicians called out, "the quantum field generators are showing some instability in the third harmonic." Wonho moved quickly to check the readings. The quantum drives were humanity's secret weapon, developed from theoretical physics that other species had never even imagined. But they were also complex and temperamental. One small mistake could strand a ship in folded space forever. "Increase the field compensation by 0.2%, he ordered, "and run a full diagnostic on the containment system. We can't afford any failures once we're in enemy territory." Across the shipyard, Marine Colonel Isul was conducting final briefings for her troops. The Marines were the elite of the elite, genetically enhanced soldiers wearing powered armor that could turn a single human into a walking tank. They had trained for every possible combat scenario Earth could imagine, but they had never faced an enemy like the Devourers. "Listen up," Colonel Isul announced to the assembled Marines. "Everything we know about our enemy comes from alien reports, so expect the unexpected. The Devourers appear to be part machine, part organic, and completely hostile. They don't take prisoners, they don't negotiate, and they don't stop until everything living is dead." She activated a holographic display showing what little intelligence they had gathered. "Their technology seems to be self-repairing and adaptive. Standard tactics might not work. Be ready to improvise, and remember, you're not just fighting for humanity anymore. There's an entire alien species counting on us." The Marines listened with grim attention. They were volunteers all, selected for their skill, courage, and unwavering dedication to protecting innocent life. Many had families back on Earth, but they were willing to travel across the galaxy to save strangers they had never met. Captain Jawan made his way through the ship, checking on the various departments. His vessel, the destroyer Relentless, was one of 50 ships that would make up the human task force. It wasn't the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, but it was the most advanced. Every ship carried weapons and technology that had been developed through centuries of human conflict. In the weapons bay, the crew was loading the special ammunition Dr. Kyung had designed. Based on her analysis of Valerian biology, she had theorized that humans might have biological advantages against cybernetic enemies. The new rounds contained human genetic material that could potentially disrupt enemy systems. "It's a long shot," Dr. Kyung had explained, "but Earth's biological diversity might be toxic to machines that are designed to process simpler alien organisms." The loading continued around the clock. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city, but they also carried medical supplies for alien refugees, translation equipment for first contact situations, and construction materials to help rebuild what the Devourers had destroyed. In the command center, Admiral Do-hyun reviewed the final mission parameters with his senior staff. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. They would travel to the edge of Valerian space, locate any survivors, and then hunt down the Devourers before they could spread further into the galaxy. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we're getting fragmentary signals from the target area. Most of the Valerian worlds have gone completely silent, but there are still some scattered transmissions. Someone is alive out there." The Admiral nodded grimly. Every hour they delayed meant more alien deaths. But rushing in unprepared would only get his people killed without helping anyone. Lieutenant Yuna approached with the latest navigation data. Her scout ship, Swift Arrow, would be among the first to enter enemy territory. The job of the scouts was to gather intelligence and locate survivors while staying hidden from the devourers. "Admiral," she said, "the quantum drive calculations are complete. We can reach Valerian space in 12 days if we push the engines to maximum efficiency." "Do it," Do-Yun ordered. "Time is not on our side." Throughout the fleet, similar preparations were taking place. Engineers tested weapons systems that had never been fired in anger. Doctors studied alien physiology to prepare for treating wounded Valerians. Communications specialists worked to improve their translation protocols. The scope of the operation was staggering. Humanity was committing nearly its entire military force to help aliens they had never met fight an enemy they knew almost nothing about. It was the kind of decision that could either save the galaxy or doom the human race. In the Marine quarters, Sergeant Chaewon was checking her squad's equipment one final time. Each soldier carried enough firepower to take on a small army, but they also carried medical supplies and emergency rations for alien civilians. The contradiction wasn't lost on her. They were traveling across space as both warriors and healers. "Sergeant," asked one of her Marines, "what do you think these aliens will be like?" Chaewon considered the question carefully. "From what the scientists tell us, they're going to be fragile and peaceful. They've never known war like we have. When they see us, they're probably going to be terrified." "Then why are we helping them?" "Because," she replied, "being strong means protecting those who can't protect themselves. That's what makes us human instead of monsters." As the final preparations were completed, word spread through the fleet that they would depart within hours. Families on Earth sent their last messages to loved ones heading into the unknown. Scientists made final adjustments to equipment they might never see again. Military planners reviewed strategies for battles they couldn't fully anticipate. Admiral Do-Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the assembled fleet. 50 ships carrying humanity's best and brightest into the darkness between stars. They were responding to a distress call from aliens who probably saw them as terrifying predators. But they were going anyway, because someone needed help, and humanity had the power to provide it. "All ships report ready for departure," his communications officer announced. "Signal the fleet," Admiral Do-Hyun commanded. "Today we leave human space for the first time as protectors instead of explorers. Today we show the galaxy what Earth's children can do when innocent lives are at stake." The massive fleet began to move, quantum drives warming up for the jump to folded space. Behind them, Earth and Mars grew smaller until they were just points of light among the stars. Ahead lay the unknown dangers of a galaxy at war. Humanity's war machine was awake, and it was going hunting. The human fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of what had once been Valerian territory. What they found there made even hardened military veterans feel sick to their stomachs. Entire star systems floated dead in space, their planets, stripped clean of everything organic. Where thriving worlds had once orbited their suns, only barren rocks remained. Admiral Do-Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the sensor readings in disbelief. According to their intelligence, this sector had contained over 40 inhabited worlds just months ago. Now the scanners showed nothing but lifeless debris and the occasional piece of alien technology drifting in the void. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "I'm picking up massive energy signatures from the inner system. Whatever did this is still active." Lieutenant Yuna's scout ship, Swift Arrow, moved carefully through the asteroid field that had once been a Valerian mining station. Her crew used passive sensors only, trying to avoid detection while searching for any signs of life. The silence was terrifying. Even the space lanes that should have been busy with traffic were completely empty. "Lieutenant," whispered her navigator, "I'm detecting a faint power signature behind that large asteroid. It's trying to stay hidden." Yuna made a quick decision. If someone was hiding, they might be survivors, but approaching them could also be walking into a trap. She decided to risk it. The swift arrow moved slowly around the asteroid, weapons ready but not targeted. What they found was a damaged Valerian science vessel, its crystalline hull cracked and dark, but there were life signs aboard. "Unknown vessel. Yuna broadcast on standard frequencies. This is Lieutenant Yuna of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call and have come to help. Please respond." For long minutes, there was only silence. Then a weak signal came back, filled with static and fear. "Earth vessel, this is Telmaran of the science ship Quiet Wisdom. Please do not harm us. We surrender whatever you want." Dr. Insu, the fleet's first contact specialist, took over the communication. He had spent years preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the terror in the alien's voice. "Telmaran, we are not here to harm you. We received your people's distress call. We have come to help fight the Devourers." There was another long pause. When the alien spoke again, his voice was filled with disbelief. You came to help? But you are from a death world. Your people are predators. Why would you risk yourselves for us?" Dr. Insu struggled to find the right words. "How do you explain human compassion to a species that sees you as a monster?" "Because someone called for help," he said simply. "That's what we do." The conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms on both ships. The Swift Arrow's sensors had detected something massive approaching through the asteroid field. Telmaran's voice became high-pitched with terror. "They found us! The Devourers are coming! You must flee while you can!" Lieutenant Yuna brought her ship to full alert as the enemy emerged from behind a cluster of debris. What she saw would haunt her nightmares for years to come. The Devourer ship was a twisted combination of metal and flesh, covered in what looked like veins and mechanical components. It moved with predatory grace, heading straight for the hidden Valerian vessel. "All hands to combat stations," Yuna ordered. "Target the hostile and prepare to engage." The enemy ship was 3 times the size of the Swift Arrow. But Yuna didn't hesitate. Her crew had trained for this moment their entire careers. The human ship's weapons fired first, quantum torpedoes and particle beams lancing out across space. The Devourer vessel's hull buckled under the assault, but it didn't stop. Instead, it began to change, its surface rippling and reforming to adapt to the human weapons. Mechanical tendrils reached out toward both ships, seeking to capture and consume them. That's when the real first contact occurred. A Marine boarding pod launched from the Swift Arrow, carrying Sergeant Chewan and her squad, directly toward the enemy ship. The Devourers had never encountered anything like human Marines before. When the pod punched through their hull and the armored humans poured out, the cybernetic creatures recoiled in shock. Sergeant Chewan's enhanced muscles allowed her to move with incredible speed in the low-gravity environment. Her powered armor made her nearly invulnerable to the Devourer's energy weapons. But most importantly, her human immune system and genetic structure created something the enemy had never faced before: biological rejection. When a Devourer tried to assimilate her, its systems failed catastrophically. The complex proteins and aggressive immune responses in human blood were toxic to the cybernetic network. Instead of adding her to their collective, the creature convulsed and died. "Target their central processing node," Chewan ordered her squad. "And remember, Direct contact seems to hurt them more than our weapons do. The Marines fought their way through corridors that pulsed with alien technology. Every time they made physical contact with the enemy, the Devourer's systems sparked and failed. What should have been a hopeless fight turned into a rout as the cybernetic creatures discovered they couldn't process human biology. On the bridge of the Quiet Wisdom, Telmaran watched in amazement as the terrifying humans tore through enemies that had been unstoppable against Valerian forces. These Deathworld predators fought with a combination of advanced technology and raw biological aggression that the Devourers had never encountered. "Telmiran," Dr. Insu called over the communication. "Link, are you seeing this? The Devourers can't handle human contact. Our biology is poisonous to them." The Valerian scientist's voice was filled with wonder. "How is this possible? They have consumed dozens of species, but they recoil from you like you are made of acid." Within an hour, the Devourer ship was dead, its systems crashed, and its crew dissolved into component chemicals. The human Marines had suffered only minor injuries, while dealing devastating damage to an enemy that had seemed invincible. As the immediate threat passed, Dr. Insu arranged for a face-to-face meeting with Telmiran. The Valerian scientist agreed to come aboard the Swift Arrow, though his fear was obvious in every transmission. When the airlock opened and Telmiran saw humans for the first time, he nearly collapsed. The humans were exactly as terrifying as he had imagined. Dense, muscular, with eyes that tracked movement like predators and reflexes that could strike faster than his species could even think. But then Dr. Insu did something that changed everything. He slowly removed his helmet and smiled. "Hello, Telmaran," the human said gently. "Welcome aboard. You're safe now." The Valerian scientist stared at the human's face, seeing past the predatory features to something else: kindness, intelligence, and genuine concern for his welfare. This Deathworld monster was offering him protection and comfort. I do not understand," Telmaran whispered. "Your people are the most dangerous beings I have ever encountered. You could conquer our entire species without effort. Why do you choose to protect us instead?" Dr. Insu considered the question carefully. "Because that's what strength is for," he said finally. "To protect those who need protection. Your people called for help, so we came." Over the following hours, Telmaran shared everything he knew about the Devourer invasion. Entire sectors of space had been consumed. Billions of Valerians were dead or missing. But for the first time since the nightmare began, he felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. These humans were everything the Valerians feared in their darkest nightmares. They were strong enough to crush his people without effort, fast enough to catch anything that tried to run, and intelligent enough to devise weapons of unimaginable destruction. But they had chosen to be protectors instead of predators. They had traveled across the galaxy to answer a cry for help from strangers who saw them as monsters. "Telmiran," Dr. Insu said as they reviewed the tactical data, "we're going to need your help to find other survivors, and we'll need to understand how the Devourers operate if we're going to stop them." The Valerian scientist nodded, still awed by the strange turn his life had taken. Yesterday, he had been hiding in an asteroid field, waiting to die. Today, he was working alongside the galaxy's most terrifying predators to save what remained of his people. "Doctor," he said quietly, "there is something you should know about the Devourers. They learn from every species they consume. They adapt and grow stronger. But they have never encountered anything like humans before." Dr. Insu smiled grimly. Then it's time they learned what happens when you threaten someone humanity has decided to protect. The first battle was over, but both species knew it was only the beginning. The Devourers would adapt to their defeat and return stronger than before. But now they faced an enemy they had never imagined. A species of deathworld predators who fought not for conquest, but for the protection of the innocent. Telmaran looked at the humans around him and realized that the galaxy had found its guardians. They carried the violence of a dangerous world in their genes, but they had chosen to use that violence in service of peace. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Do-hyun established his temporary command center on a barren moon at the edge of the former Valerian territory. The rocky surface was scarred with impact craters and offered no atmosphere or life, but it provided a hidden base where the human fleet could regroup and plan their next moves. The main command bunker hummed with activity as humans and Valerians worked side by side for the first time in galactic history. Telmaran moved carefully among the human officers, still amazed that these powerful beings treated him as an equal rather than prey. Every human he met was polite and respectful, despite being strong enough to break him with their bare hands. Telmaran. Admiral Do-hyun called out, "Please join us for the tactical briefing." The Valerian scientist approached the central holographic display, where a three-dimensional map showed the current state of his people's former territory. Red zones marked areas completely consumed by the Devourers. Yellow zones indicated places where fighting was still ongoing. Green zones showed a handful of hidden refugee settlements that had somehow escaped detection. "As you can see," the Admiral continued, "the situation is worse than we initially thought. The Devourers have consumed over 90% of Valerian space in just 6 months. But there are still survivors, and that gives us hope." Captain Nari stepped forward with her latest intelligence report. She had led several reconnaissance missions into Devourer-controlled territory, gathering crucial information about the enemy's methods and weaknesses. "Sir, I've completed the analysis of the recently attacked colony on Veltar 7. What we found there changes everything we thought we knew about our enemy." The holographic display shifted to show detailed scans of the devastated world. Where cities had once stood, only twisted metal and organic residue remained. But Captain Nari highlighted specific areas where the destruction seemed incomplete. "The Devourers don't just consume randomly," she explained. "They're selective. They target specific biological compounds and neural structures. But here's the interesting part. They left behind anything that resembled Earth-based proteins." Dr. Minho, the fleet's leading biochemist, joined the briefing. He had been studying samples from the battlefield where Sergeant Chaewon's Marines had first encountered the Devourers. His findings were extraordinary. The enemy's assimilation process is based on incorporating foreign biological material into their collective network, Dr. Minho reported. But human biology is fundamentally different from anything they've encountered before. Our immune systems are hyper-aggressive, our cellular structure is incredibly complex, and our genetic diversity is off the charts. He activated a molecular display showing the interaction between human and devourer systems. When they try to process human genetic material, it's like introducing a virus into their network. Our biology doesn't just resist assimilation, it actively attacks their systems from within. Telmaran listened with growing amazement. "This explains why you were able to destroy them so easily. Your bodies are literally poisonous to their technology." Admiral Do-hyun leaned forward with interest. "Doctor, are you saying we can weaponize this biological incompatibility?" "More than that, sir. I believe we can create a cascade failure throughout their entire collective consciousness. If we can introduce enough human genetic material into their primary network nodes, we might be able to crash their entire operation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's violent evolutionary history, their aggressive immune systems, and their complex biology, all the things that made them seem monstrous to peaceful species like the Valerians, might be exactly what was needed to defeat the Devourers. Captain Nari pulled up tactical schematics. Based on our reconnaissance, the Devourers operate from massive hive ships that coordinate their activities across entire star systems. If we could infiltrate one of these vessels and deploy Dr. Minho's biological weapons, it would be a suicide mission, Telmaran said quietly. The hive ships are protected by thousands of smaller vessels. No one has ever gotten close to one and survived. Sergeant Chewan, who had been listening from the back of the room, stepped forward. With respect, Telmaran, no one like us has ever tried. She activated her own display showing the combat performance of human Marines against Devourer forces. The statistics were staggering. In every engagement, human forces had achieved victory ratios that should have been impossible. Our enhanced reflexes let us dodge their energy weapons. Our powered armor makes us nearly invulnerable to their physical attacks, and our biological makeup means they can't assimilate us even if they capture us. We're not just resistant to their tactics. We're their perfect counter. Admiral Do Yun studied the tactical situation carefully. The plan was risky beyond measure, but it offered the first real hope of ending the Devourer threat permanently. Dr. Minho, how long would you need to prepare these biological weapons? 72 hours, sir. I'll need genetic samples from volunteers across the fleet to maximize the diversity and effectiveness. You'll have them, the Admiral promised. Telmaran, we'll need detailed intelligence about Devourer hive ship layouts and defensive systems. The Valerian scientist nodded eagerly. I have complete technical specifications from our failed attempts to study them. But, Admiral, you must understand, what you're proposing has never been attempted by any species. The hive ships are living fortresses. Then it's time someone taught them that fortresses can fall, Admiral Do Hyun replied grimly. Over the next 3 days, the human base became a hive of activity. Dr. Minho worked around the clock to develop what the military dubbed biological warfare agents, specialized compounds that could exploit the fundamental incompatibility between human and devourer systems. Meanwhile, Captain Nari refined the assault plan with input from Telmaran and other Valerian survivors who had been rescued from hidden refuges. The operation would require precise timing and flawless execution. One mistake would doom not only the assault team, but potentially the entire human fleet. Lieutenant Yuna volunteered to lead the infiltration mission, despite Admiral Do Hyun's concerns about risking his best scout commander. Her ship, the Swift Arrow, had already proven it could operate undetected in Devourer territory. Sir, she argued, my crew knows these systems better than anyone. We've mapped their patrol patterns and identified their blind spots. If anyone can get close to a hive ship, it's us. The Admiral finally agreed, but with conditions. You'll have a full Marine escort, and Commander Sunmi's carrier group will provide backup. At the first sign of trouble, you abort the mission and retreat. Understood, sir. As the preparations continued, Telmaran found himself amazed by human military efficiency. These beings who seemed so chaotic and aggressive in combat operated with incredible precision when planning. Every detail was considered, every contingency planned for. Dr. Insu, he asked during a quiet moment, how did your species become so skilled at warfare? The Valerians have known peace for thousands of years, but humans seem to understand conflict instinctively. Dr. Insu looked thoughtful. Earth was never a peaceful world, Telmiran. We evolved alongside predators that could kill us, diseases that could destroy our civilizations, and natural disasters that could end our species. We learned to fight because we had to. But we also learned to work together because no human can survive alone. And now you use those skills to protect others? That's what makes us human rather than monsters, Dr. Insu replied. We have the power to destroy, but we choose to protect instead. On the eve of the mission, Admiral Do-hyun addressed the combined human and Valerian personnel. The contrast between the two species was striking. Humans standing tall and strong in their military uniforms, Valerians graceful and delicate in their flowing robes. Tomorrow we implement the Deathworld doctrine, the Admiral announced. We're going to use everything that makes humanity dangerous and turn it against our enemies. We're going to show the Devourers what happens when they threaten innocent life. He paused to look at the Valerians in the room. To our new allies, I want you to know that humanity doesn't abandon its friends. Your people called for help and we answered. Tomorrow, we're going to make sure the Devourers never threaten anyone again. Telmiran felt something he had never experienced before. The absolute certainty that someone stronger than himself was willing to fight and die for his people's survival. These Deathworld predators had chosen to be guardians, and they would not be stopped by any force in the galaxy. As the briefing ended and personnel dispersed to their final preparations, Telmiran remained behind with Dr. Insu. Doctor, he said quietly, what you're attempting tomorrow, it could save every species in the galaxy, but it could also cost humanity everything. Why take such a risk for people you barely know? Dr. Insu smiled with that gentle expression that had first shown Telmiran the humanity behind the Predator's features. Because someone has to, he said simply. And we're the ones with the power to do it. Tomorrow the galaxy would learn what happened when Earth's children went to war for justice rather than conquest. The Deathworld doctrine would be tested in the fires of battle, and either humanity would prove itself the galaxy's greatest protector, or they would die trying. Either way, the innocent would not stand alone. The Devourer hive world hung in space like a cancerous growth, its surface covered with twisted spires that pulsed with sickly light. The planet had once been beautiful, home to billions of Valerians who lived in crystal cities that grew like living things. Now it was a nightmare of metal and flesh, the nerve center of the enemy's operations in this sector. Admiral Do-hyun studied the tactical display from the bridge of his flagship, watching as sensor data revealed the true scope of what they faced. The planet was defended by over 300 Devourer vessels, ranging from small scouts to massive capital ships. But intelligence suggested that destroying the hive world's central consciousness could crash the entire network across multiple star systems. All ships report ready for Operation Earthfall, his communications officer announced. The Admiral took a deep breath. This would be the largest military action in human history, and possibly the last if they failed. 50 human ships against hundreds of enemy vessels, with the fate of countless innocent lives hanging in the balance. Signal the fleet, Admiral Do-hyun commanded. Begin the attack. Captain Yuna led the orbital bombardment from her battlecruiser Thunderstrike. Her ship's quantum cannons opened fire first, sending beams of destructive energy across impossible distances to strike the enemy fleet. The Devourer ships immediately began to respond, their adaptive hulls shifting to resist the human weapons. But the humans had learned from their previous encounters. Instead of maintaining steady fire, they used rapid burst patterns that prevented the enemy from adapting quickly enough. Devourer vessels exploded in brilliant flashes as their systems overloaded. "Target their command vessels," Captain Huna ordered. "Don't give them time to coordinate their defense." The space battle was fierce and chaotic. Commander Gaiwan led his fighter squadron through swarms of enemy drones, using humanity's superior reflexes and spatial awareness to outmaneuver opponents that should have been faster and more agile. "Phoenix Squadron, follow my lead," Gaiwan called over the comm as he rolled his fighter between two enemy vessels. "Use their size against them. Get in close where their big guns can't track you." His pilots responded with precision that amazed even their human commanders. Earth's high gravity and dangerous environment had produced beings with incredible three-dimensional awareness. What looked like impossible maneuvers to other species were natural instincts to humans. While the space battle raged overhead, the real mission was happening on the planet's surface. Marine Colonel Isul led the planetary assault, her dropships screaming through the atmosphere toward the primary hive complex. The enemy's surface defenses opened fire immediately, filling the sky with energy beams and projectile weapons. "All units execute combat landing protocol," Colonel Isul commanded as her ship shook under enemy fire. "Remember, direct contact with the enemy is more effective than weapons. Get in close and let our biology do the work." The dropships crashed through the hive complex's outer defenses like meteors, smashing into structures that writhed and pulsed with alien life. The Marines poured out of their vehicles in full combat gear, their powered armor gleaming under the planet's unnatural lights. Sergeant Chewin led her squad through corridors that seemed to breathe around them. The walls were lined with organic components that monitored their progress and tried to adapt to their presence. But every time the alien technology attempted to analyze the humans, it recoiled as if burned. "Squad, maintain contact discipline," Chewin ordered as they fought their way deeper into the complex. "Touch everything you can. Our skin is poison to these things." The battles in the hive corridors were unlike anything in military history. The Marines fought enemies that could reshape themselves at will, but every physical contact caused the devourers to convulse and fail. Human immune systems that had evolved to fight Earth's most aggressive pathogens were devastating to cybernetic organisms. Dr. Minho's biological weapons were the key to the entire operation. Carried by specially selected teams, the engineered compounds contained concentrated human genetic material designed to trigger cascade failures in the Devourer network, but getting them to the central processing nodes required fighting through kilometers of hostile territory. "Team 7, this is Biochem 1, Dr. Minho reported as his escort fought through a chamber filled with pulsing neural networks. "I'm at deployment point Alpha. Beginning weapon activation." The biological weapon released a cloud of microscopic particles that carried human DNA sequences into the surrounding alien technology. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Entire sections of the hive complex began shutting down as their systems failed to process the foreign genetic information. Above them, the space battle was turning in humanity's favor. The enemy's adaptive technology, which had made them nearly invincible against other species, was useless against human unpredictability. Every time the Devourers tried to counter human tactics, the humans changed their approach. "Admiral," reported, "Captain Hyuna, enemy coordination is breaking down. Their ships are operating independently now." Admiral Do-hyun smiled grimly. The biological weapons were working. As the hive world's central consciousness failed, the individual devourer vessels lost their ability to work together effectively. In the depths of the complex, Sergeant Chaywan's squad reached their primary objective, the core processing center where the planet's consciousness resided. The chamber was enormous, filled with towering structures that pulsed with the collective thoughts of billions of consumed beings. "Deploy the weapons," Chaywan ordered. "Maximum dispersal pattern." Her Marines triggered the biological devices, simultaneously releasing clouds of human genetic material directly into the enemy's central nervous system. The reaction was immediate and violent. The entire chamber convulsed as alien technology tried desperately to process information that was fundamentally toxic to its existence. Across the planet, similar scenes played out as Marine teams reached their objectives. Each successful deployment caused more of the Hive network to collapse. Systems that had operated flawlessly for centuries began failing as human biology poisoned their core functions. Commander Giwan witnessed the turning point from his fighter cockpit. Below him, the planet's surface began to go dark as the Hive structures lost power. Above him, enemy ships drifted helplessly as their connection to the central consciousness was severed. "All fighters, press the attack," he commanded. "The enemy is disorganized. Don't give them time to recover." The human fleet surged forward, destroying confused and isolated enemy vessels with systematic efficiency. Ships that had seemed invincible hours earlier now fell like leaves in an autumn storm. On the surface, the Marines began their withdrawal as the Hive complex collapsed around them. The biological weapons had done their work too well. The entire structure was dying, and they needed to escape before it took them with it. "All teams, immediate extraction," Colonel Isul ordered. "The whole place is coming down." The drop. Ships swooped in under heavy fire to retrieve the assault teams. Some Marines had to be left behind when their positions became untenable. But they continued fighting until the end, ensuring that their comrades could escape with the mission's success. As the human fleet pulled back to a safe distance, they watched the Hive world die. The planet's surface cracked and split as its artificial ecosystem collapsed. Billions of tons of twisted metal and flesh fell into the growing fissures, while the atmosphere itself began to break down. "Sir," reported the sensor officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining enemy vessels. They're requesting permission to withdraw from this system." Admiral Do Yun considered the request carefully. The surviving devourers were no longer connected to their central consciousness. They might be able to function as individuals, but they would never again pose the same collective threat. "Grant them safe passage," he decided. "But make it clear that any future attacks on civilian populations will result in their complete destruction." The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. This had been just one Hive world among many, and the Devourers would eventually adapt to human biology just as they had adapted to other threats. But for now, humanity had proven that Earth's children could stand against any enemy. Telmeron watched the aftermath from the bridge of a human ship, still amazed by what he had witnessed. These Deathworld predators had turned their violent nature into a tool for protection. They had risked everything to save species they had never met. "Dr. Insu," he said quietly, "your people have given the galaxy something it has never had before. Hope that evil can be defeated." Dr. Insu nodded, but his expression remained serious. "This is just the beginning, Telmeron. The Devourers will learn from this defeat and return stronger. But now they know that someone is willing to fight them." As the human fleet regrouped, and began rescue operations for Valerian survivors, messages started arriving from across the galaxy. Other species had heard about the victory at the Hive world. For the first time in centuries, civilizations that had been hiding in fear began to hope that they might survive. The tide had turned, but the real war was just beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as guardians. The universe would never be the same. 3 months after the destruction of the Hive world, the liberated Valerian colonies had begun the slow process of rebuilding. Crystal cities grew once again from the scarred ground, but now they incorporated new defensive technologies developed through human-Valerian cooperation. The peaceful aliens had learned that sometimes protection required preparation for war. Admiral Doyan stood in the newly constructed Joint Command Center on New Veltar, watching through the transparent walls, as human engineers and Valerian biotechnicians worked side by side. The facility was a marvel of cooperative engineering, human military efficiency combined with Valerian harmony with their environment. "Admiral," Telmaran approached with his latest intelligence report. The Valerian scientist had become humanity's primary liaison with the various alien species that were slowly emerging from hiding. "We've received contact from 17 different civilizations in the past week alone. Word of your victory is spreading faster than we anticipated." The news was both encouraging and concerning. Every species that contacted them had similar stories. Ancient enemies awakening, peaceful worlds under attack, desperate calls for help that had gone unanswered for decades. The Devourers were just one threat among many that had been terrorizing the galaxy, while civilized species hid in fear. Captain Su-Yung entered the command center carrying data tablets from her research facility. She had been working with Valerian biotechnicians to understand how different species might work together more effectively. Her findings were reshaping humanity's understanding of galactic civilization. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said, activating a holographic display that showed the current state of known space. "We've identified at least 47 distinct threats currently active in various sectors. The Devourers were actually one of the smaller problems." The display showed red zones marking areas controlled by different hostile forces. The machine collective that converted organic beings into cybernetic slaves, the void hunters who consumed entire stars for energy, the swarm that reproduced by infecting other species with their larvae. "Sir," Captain Su-Yung continued, "most of these threats have been active for centuries. The peaceful species have been hiding and hoping someone else would solve their problems. They never developed the military capabilities to defend themselves." Admiral A. Do-hyun studied the tactical situation with growing concern. Humanity had stumbled into a galaxy-wide conflict that had been raging since before Earth had developed spaceflight. They were potentially the only species capable of mounting effective resistance. "What about their technology?" he asked. "Surely some of these civilizations have advantages we could use." Telmiran activated another display showing the technological capabilities of various species. "Admiral, the crystalline architects can build structures that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The thought weavers can manipulate matter with pure mental energy. The star shepherds can move entire planets to safer locations. But none of them can fight," Captain Su-Yung added. "They evolved in peaceful environments without predators or competition. When faced with violence, their instinct is to hide rather than resist." The implications were staggering. Humanity possessed something that was apparently unique in the galaxy, the combination of advanced technology, military capability, and the willingness to fight for others rather than themselves. Ambassador. Jiwon joined the meeting with news from the diplomatic front. She had been negotiating with representatives from dozens of species, trying to organize some kind of coordinated response to the various threats. "Admiral," she reported, "I've had productive talks with the Council of Peaceful Worlds. They're willing to share their advanced technologies with us in exchange for military protection. But there's a problem." She activated a communication recording that showed a gathering of various alien species. The diversity was astounding. Beings of crystalline light, creatures that existed as living energy, entities that communicated through chemical exchanges. "They're terrified of us," Ambassador Jiwon continued. "To them, humans represent the most dangerous predator species they've ever encountered. They want our protection, but they're afraid we'll eventually turn on them." Admiral Do-hyun understood their concern. From their perspective, humanity was making the same choice that any predator might make, protecting their food source from other predators. How could peaceful beings trust that humans would never decide to become conquerors instead of protectors? "What do you recommend, Ambassador?" "We need to prove our intentions through actions, not words. I propose we establish the Galactic Defense Alliance with humanity as the military arm and the peaceful species as our technological and logistical support network." Dr. Kyung arrived with her latest research on human psychology and its implications for galactic politics. She had been studying why humans were willing to fight for strangers when most species wouldn't even fight for themselves. "Admiral," she said, "I think I understand why we're different. Most species evolved in stable environments where cooperation was always beneficial. Humans evolved in a world where sometimes you had to fight, but you also learned that protecting your community was essential for survival." She activated a comparative analysis showing human behavioral patterns versus other species. "We have something called protective aggression. We become more dangerous when defending others than when defending ourselves. Most species show the opposite pattern." "That explains why we're here," Admiral Do-hyun noted. "But will it convince them to trust us?" The answer came in an unexpected form. Captain Jamin contacted them from his defense station in the Outer Rim, his voice tight with urgency. "Admiral, we've got incoming hostiles. 3 Void Hunter ships are approaching the Crystalline Architect homeworld. They're demanding the local defense force surrender all stellar engineering equipment." The test had come sooner than expected. The peaceful Crystalline Architects had never successfully resisted a Void Hunter attack. Their entire species could be enslaved or destroyed within hours. "Signal the fleet," Admiral Do-hyun ordered. "All available ships are to respond immediately. We're not losing anyone on our watch." The human response was swift and decisive. Captain Hyuna's battle group arrived at the Crystalline Architect homeworld just as the Void Hunters began their attack. The alien predators were confident in their victory. They had never encountered effective resistance from any peaceful species. That confidence lasted exactly 4 minutes. The human ships engaged the Void Hunters with tactics the galaxy had never seen before. Instead of trying to outrun or hide from the more advanced enemy vessels, the humans closed to point-blank range and fought with brutal efficiency. Commander Gaiwan led his fighters in coordinated attacks that exploited the Void Hunters' overconfidence. The alien predators had expected easy prey and found themselves facing opponents who fought with deadly precision and absolute determination. "Target their power cores," Giwan commanded as his squadron swept through the enemy formation. "These things feed on stellar energy, so let's give them more than they can handle." The battle ended with all 3 Void Hunter ships destroyed and 0 human casualties. But more importantly, it was broadcast live to every major civilization in the galaxy through the Crystalline Architect's communication network. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds watched as the terrifying humans from the Deathworld, called Earth, fought not for conquest or resources, but to protect strangers they had never met. The images of human ships standing guard over alien worlds spread faster than any military intelligence. Telmaran received the first response within hours, a formal request from the Star Shepherds to join the Galactic Defense Alliance. By the end of the week, 23 different species had submitted similar requests. "Admiral," Telmaran reported with barely contained excitement, "the Council of Peaceful Worlds has voted unanimously to ratify the Alliance Treaty. They're calling it the greatest development in galactic history." Admiral Do-hyun reviewed the treaty terms with satisfaction. Humanity would provide military protection and strategic leadership. The peaceful species would contribute their advanced technologies, resources, and scientific knowledge. Together, they would work to eliminate the various threats that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. But there was a warning buried in the final intelligence reports. The Devourers had not been destroyed completely. Isolated groups were already adapting to human biology, developing countermeasures and new tactics. Other predator species were studying human combat methods and preparing their own responses. "Sir," Captain Su-young warned, "we've given the galaxy hope, but we've also painted a target on our backs. Every hostile force out there now sees humanity as their primary threat." Admiral Do-hyun nodded grimly. "Then we'd better make sure we're ready for them." As the first joint human-alien research facilities came online and defense stations were established throughout peaceful space, a new era began for the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, the innocent had protectors who were stronger than their predators. 1 year after first contact with the Valerians, the galaxy had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. What had begun as a desperate response to an alien distress call had grown into the largest cooperative alliance in recorded galactic history. From his office aboard the massive space station Guardian Prime, Admiral Do-hyun, now Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Alliance, reviewed reports from across known space. The alliance now included over 300 species, each contributing their unique abilities to the common defense. Humanity provided the military backbone, but they were no longer fighting alone. Valerian biotechnology enhanced human medical capabilities. Crystalline architect engineering created unbreachable defensive positions. Thought-weaver communication. Networks allowed instant coordination across entire sectors of space. "Sir," Captain Jamin reported from his latest patrol mission, "we've successfully evacuated the Harmony Singers from the Nexus sector before the Machine Collective could assimilate them. That's the 14th successful rescue operation this month." The human defense fleet had grown to over 800 ships, each one crewed by mixed teams of humans and allied species. What had once seemed impossible, cooperation between predators and prey species, had become routine. Trust had been built through countless acts of sacrifice and protection. Dr. Su-young entered the command center with her latest psychological analysis. She had spent months studying how different species had adapted to working alongside humans. Her findings revealed something remarkable about the nature of courage and cooperation. "Commander," she reported, "we're seeing unprecedented behavioral changes in our allied species. The Valerians are developing their first military units. The crystalline architects are creating weapons for the first time in their history. Even the most peaceful species are learning to fight when necessary." She activated a holographic display showing training exercises between human Marines and alien volunteers. The sight would have been unthinkable a year ago. Gentle, peaceful beings learning combat techniques from Earth's most dangerous predators. But the most interesting development, Dr. Su-Yung continued, is that they're not becoming more aggressive. They're becoming more protective. They're learning to channel their fear into determination to defend others. Admiral Do-hyun nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what humanity had hoped to achieve. Not to make the galaxy more violent, but to make it more willing to stand up to violence. The door chimed and Telmiran entered with urgent news. The Valerian scientist had become one of humanity's most trusted advisors, his initial terror of humans long since replaced by deep respect and friendship. "Commander," Telmiran announced, "we've received a long-range transmission from beyond. The Galactic Rim. It's not from any known species." He activated the communication system, and a new voice filled the command center. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. Another galaxy was under attack. Ancient enemies had awakened there as well, and entire civilizations were crying out for help. "We have heard of the alliance of the small blue world." The message continued. "We have heard that the children of Earth stand guard over the innocent. Our people are dying. Our worlds are burning. If there is hope anywhere in the universe, it comes from you." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. The threats they had been fighting were not limited to their galaxy. Somewhere, across the vast emptiness between spiral arms, other innocent species were facing the same horrors that had nearly destroyed the Valerians. "How far?" Admiral Do-hyun asked quietly. Telmiran checked his calculations. 2.7 million light-years, sir. Even with our best quantum drives, it would take months to reach them. And we have no idea what we'd be facing when we arrived. Captain, Su-Yung pulled up strategic display showing the current state of their own galaxy. "Commander, we're already stretched thin. We have active operations in 47 sectors. Taking ships away from our current responsibilities could leave our allies vulnerable." The Admiral walked to the viewing port and stared out at the stars. Each point of light represented countless lives depending on human protection. But somewhere beyond the visible galaxy, other innocents were dying while calling his name. "Telmiran," he said finally, "what do you think we should do?" The Valerian scientist considered the question carefully. A year ago, he would have counseled caution and self-preservation. But his time with humans had changed him, just as it had changed his entire species. "Commander," Telmiran replied, "when my people sent their distress call, we never expected anyone to answer. We thought we would die alone and forgotten. But you came anyway. Even though helping us offered you nothing but danger." He moved to stand beside the Admiral at the viewing port. "Those beings in the distant galaxy are sending the same call we sent. They're facing the same darkness we faced. How can we not answer?" Admiral Do-hyun smiled. This was why humanity had chosen to be protectors rather than conquerors. Not because it was easy or safe, but because it was right. "Dr. Su-Yung," he ordered, "begin planning for an intergalactic expedition. Select our best ships and most experienced. Crews! We're going to need volunteers for what might be a one-way mission." "Sir," she replied, "every human in the fleet will volunteer, and probably half the aliens too." Over the following weeks, preparations began for humanity's most ambitious mission yet. The expedition would require new technology, unprecedented cooperation between species, and courage beyond anything previously demanded. The crystalline architects designed ships that could survive the journey between galaxies. The Star Shepherds plotted navigation routes through the cosmic void. The Thought Weavers created communication networks that could span impossible distances, but it was the humans who would carry the primary burden. They would be the warriors, the protectors, the ones willing to face unknown dangers for the sake of strangers they might never meet. Sergeant Chewon, now promoted to colonel, led the preparation of the expedition's marine forces. Her troops were veterans of a dozen campaigns against galactic predators. They had proven themselves capable of standing against any enemy. "Listen up," she addressed her assembled soldiers. "We're about to travel further from Earth than any human has ever gone. We're going to fight enemies we've never seen to protect people we've never met. Some of us might not come back." She paused to look at each face in the room. "But that's what we signed up for. We're the children of a dangerous world, and we've chosen to use that danger to protect the innocent. Today, that choice takes us to the stars." The expedition launched with 50 ships and 20,000 personnel, humans and allies working together as a single unit. As they departed known space, messages of support came from across the galaxy. Hundreds of species they had protected sent their hopes and prayers for the mission's success. Tel'Maran stood on the bridge of the expedition flagship, watching his home galaxy shrink behind them. Beside him, Admiral Do-Yun checked their course, toward the distant spiral of stars where new friends waited for salvation. "Commander," Tel'Maran said quietly, "a year ago, I thought humans were the most terrifying beings in the universe. Now I think you might be the most wonderful." Admiral Do-Yun considered this. "We're still terrifying, Tel'Maran, but we've learned to be terrifying to the right people." As their ships entered the void between galaxies, a new distress call reached them, this one from their own galaxy. Another threat had emerged, and the Alliance needed its guardians. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "High Command is requesting our immediate return. The plague swarm has awakened in the outer spiral. 17 worlds are already infected." Admiral, Do-Hyun faced an impossible choice. Return to protect the galaxy they had sworn to defend, or continue toward strangers who were calling for help. Either decision would mean abandoning innocence to face horror alone. The answer came from an unexpected source. The alien expedition members voted unanimously to continue the mission, while the human ships returned to face the new threat. "Commander," Tel'Maran announced, "we've learned from you that sometimes protecting others means facing danger alone. The peaceful species can be brave too when we remember what we're fighting for." As the fleet divided, humans returning to their galaxy while aliens continued toward the distant one, Admiral Do-Hyun realized that humanity's greatest victory was not military. They had taught an entire galaxy that being strong meant protecting, the weak that being brave meant standing up for others, and that being truly civilized meant never abandoning those who called for help. The expedition continued toward the distant galaxy, carrying with them the values Earth had taught the universe. Behind them, human ships raced back to face new threats with alien allies who had learned to be warriors in defense of peace. The galaxy was no longer a place where the innocent hid in fear while predators ruled through terror. It had become something new, a community of protectors where the strong defended the weak not for profit or power, but because it was the right thing to do.